You've got a legendary director, a seriously polarizing athlete, and a multi-billion-dollar media deal. It's all part of the story of a documentary that was almost finished, and then just vanished. In this explainer, we're going to dig into a source that asks one simple question: why? So this is how the source article we're exploring kicks things off. It takes ESPN's famous slogan, "the world's wide leader in sports," and flips it on its head. The author argues that ESPN has become a leader in something else entirely: capitulation, basically giving in. So what's the big mystery here? Well, you have a huge docuseries from the one and only Spike Lee, all about Colin Kaepernick, one of the most talked about figures in sports. And then, poof, it gets shelved. The source we're looking at thinks the real reason isn't some vague excuse, but a major clash between journalism and big money. All right, let's start with the event that got everybody talking. According to the source, we had a project that was almost at the finish line, a deep dive into Colin Kaepernick's story by a master filmmaker, and then ESPN just pulled it. The official line from the network was creative differences, that classic corporate speak that can mean literally anything or nothing. The author of our source material sees that phrase and immediately thinks, okay, there is way more to this story. Now, to really understand why this cancellation is such a big deal, we have to rewind a bit. We need to talk about the man at the center of it all, Colin Kaepernick, before he became this huge global symbol. Before the protests, and the source really wants us to remember this, Kaepernick was a legit star. He took his team to the Super Bowl. You look at these stats, this isn't some backup player. He was a genuine, talented starting quarterback in the NFL. And here's something crucial that the source points out. His protest wasn't just some spontaneous thing. He actually consulted with a former Green Beret, Nate Boyer, to figure out a way to protest that was respectful but still powerful. And the goal he stated was clear: bring attention to police brutality and systemic racism. After that 2016 season, Kaepernick's career just stopped. It came to a dead halt. And the source argues that this had nothing to do with his on-field talent. It was, they claim, a coordinated effort by the league to push him out because of his activism. They call it blackballing. And this number right here, it really drives the author's point home. 0. Since he became a free agent in March of 2017, not a single one of the 32 NFL teams has offered him a contract. In a league that is always looking for quarterbacks, that number is pretty staggering. And according to the source, it's not like he didn't try to get back in. This timeline shows multiple moments where it looked like a return could happen. The league set up a workout, he had a positive session with the Raiders, there was even talk of a practice squad spot, but every single time, the door was slammed shut. Now, this is where the author brings in the political angle. This quote from then-President Donald Trump is presented as a turning point. It blew the whole thing up into a massive political firestorm. And, the author argues, put a ton of pressure on NFL owners to keep Kaepernick on the sidelines. So Kaepernick fought back. He filed a legal grievance claiming the league owners were all working together against him. And while we don't know the exact details because it was confidential, the source points to the fact that the NFL settled for millions of dollars as pretty significant evidence for his claim. Okay, so how does all of this drama tie back to a canceled Spike Lee film? Well, this is where the author lays out what they believe is the smoking gun in this whole story. The author's whole argument really comes down to timing. They put these two events right next to each other and want you to see a direct link. On one side, ESPN cancels a potentially controversial film about Kaepernick. On the other side, at around the same time, ESPN signs a gigantic multi-billion-dollar deal that gives the NFL an ownership stake in the network. The author is basically asking, you really think this is a coincidence? So all of this brings us to the author's final conclusion. They frame this entire situation as a fundamental conflict, a showdown between what's good for business and what's morally right. And the contrast the author presents here is pretty stark. You've got Kaepernick, whose famous Nike ad championed the idea of sacrificing everything for your beliefs. And then, in the author's eyes, you have ESPN making the exact opposite choice, sacrificing a powerful story to protect a financial partnership. The author even coins a specific phrase for this kind of decision, the cowardice of capital. They define it as that moment when the money, the economic interests, become more important than the moral need to challenge power and let dissenting voices be heard. So to sum it up, the author's final takeaway is this: Kaepernick used his platform to talk about serious social issues. Meanwhile, The NFL has found ways to employ players with actual criminal records, but couldn't find a spot for him. And, ultimately, they accuse ESPN of picking their business partner over their journalistic duty, making this a much bigger story about power silencing dissent. And the source leaves us with this powerful question, one that goes way beyond just one athlete or one TV network. It's something for all of us to think about. When a story becomes inconvenient for the bottom line, who really has the courage to tell it?